Hey there, everybody. Welcome into this Wednesday edition of ESPN FC Extra Time. We've got your questions straight off of Twitter. We got Craig Buirley straight off the golf course. And we have Ian Darke joining us from his very technologically impressive home studio where he's already calling matches. Look at that.
Just before we get on to the questions, word reaches me via the old pigeon carrier that you decided to do a top 5 US players' performances in the Bundesliga at the weekend, and you put in a player at number 2 that didn't even play. Gio Reyna. How's that possible?
Okay, let me make my case. First of all, you can check out the video on the ESPN FC YouTube channel. Definitely go over there and give it a little click and a little like.
Top performances mean how can you have a top performance when you get injured in the warm-up and you don't play? How's that possible?
Well, sometimes other guys have worse performances, right? And so they might drop in that order. And here's the real reason. He beat out Sancho's a little bit injured, but Thorgan Hazard for the start. So he beat out 2 pretty good players who were supposed to be in the starting lineup, gets hurt. I didn't hold him against him. I also wanted, give the guys something to argue about, so it helped. Speaking of things to argue about, let's get to these. Let's get to the questions here. Dan the Orange Man on Twitter asks, Ian, what is the greatest performance that you've seen from a single player while commentating a match?
That's hard off the top of your head. I'd need a bit of time to think about that, but I think I'm going to go back to that 2011 Champions League final and Lionel Messi when Barcelona were just magnificent on the day, and he was too. So, yeah, I'll pick that.
All right, Craig, next question for you from Paul. Who was the biggest prankster you played with, and what was the best prank?
Probably John Spencer was the one that was always trying to do the most at Chelsea. And I can't tell you what some of the pranks were, because they were so near the mark that unfortunately I can't share those particular ones. I used to do the odd one myself, like Vidar Riseth, the Norwegian international. When I was at Celtic with him, at one point we were living in the same apartment block, and that apartment block had a communal swimming pool and gymnasium, and so I was coming out one night as Vidar was going in, and he decided that he was going to go into the sauna, and so I nailed his shoes to the floor and tied his laces in about 150 knots, and he managed to get the nails out, but he couldn't get the knot out, and I saw him outside my window bouncing back to his house with the 2 shoes with the laces both tied together. And he tried, you know what he did the next day? He took an old milk crate, if you know what those are. Bread crate. He took a crate that holds all the bread. He tied it to the exhaust of my car, and he slid it underneath the car. And he anticipated I was going to take this car and drive it all the way to Celtic Park with this bread tray hanging out the back. But I decided to take my wife's car that day. And as I reversed out, I spotted it. And so when I came to work at Celtic, he had this big grin on his face. And I was able to let him down gently by telling him that I took my wife's car and I'd spotted it. So, you got to be sharp to do these pranks,
Just another reason for Miss Buirley to regret marrying you there. Okay, Frank McManaman gives us the next tweet. Ian, what are the biggest changes that you have seen in the Premier League since you began commentating in 1992? Is that accurate? Was 92 your first year? No.
The Premier League started in 1992. Yeah, a long time ago. 92. Now, I think the standard of the pitches is one thing. The surfaces. Craig will remember this. They weren't always like they are today. They're like billiard tables, pool tables today. Wonderful to play on. And the other thing is, I think in the first Premier League, there were only 12 foreign players. The rest of them were British. Now, of course, we have a galaxy of stars from all over the world playing in the Premier League. So it is very different now.
Frank McManaman gives us our next question as well. Craig, who was the most annoying player not co-commentator, that you ever played with?
The most annoying player that I ever played with?
Yep. You could give us an against. I'm sure there's a longer list there.
I think I would, and I've brought this up a few times, I think Georgi Kinkladze annoyed me at Darbe, because Georgi Kinkladze was a supreme talent, the Georgian international. And we only ever saw glimpses of that. He had the world at his feet. And I played and trained with players like Gianfranco Zola and Henrik Larsson and Ruud Gullit, and the list goes on. And his talent, in terms of talent, he could match them, but in terms of work rate and attitude, he couldn't. And that's why he had a good career, but he could have been a world beater. He had all the skill. And so from that sense, that kind of annoyed me, because he was a guy that, you know, I would call it a waster, because he just didn't get the most out of his talent. And I tell you what, he was a heck of a talent.
Ian, penultimate question coming your way. Who's the greatest Spaniard to play in the Premier League? Xabi Alonso, David Silva, Torres, De Gea, Fabregas, or other? Plenty of choices.
I'm going to go, it's a sentimental choice really, for David Silva, who's been around at Manchester City right the way through the glory years really. What is it, 10 years or so now? It's his final season. They should be building a statue. He's a lovely, magical player, and really, he's been at the heart of so much success at that club. And he's such a humble guy as well. He's much loved, I think, not only by Manchester City fans, but right around the league, and we'll be sorry to see him go.
Craig, any issues with Ian's choice?
No, because, you know, some of the other guys maybe grab the headlines a bit more. But, you know, in the old days when they used to give players the markings in the newspapers, well, they might still do, I don't know. But, you know, you could mark David Silva before each weekend started, because he was almost, if he wasn't a 10 out of 10, he was an 8 out of 10 every week. And I think that consistency over a decade of service or whatever it is for Man City has been just incredible. And as Ian said, no ego, unflappable, don't really read about him, and he just gets on with his job. And he's been, as I say, an 8 out of 10 or above almost every weekend for 10 years, which is quite incredible.
All right, boys, the last question touches on a recurring topic here on ESPN FC Extra Time just recently. Again, from Dan the Orange Man. Seb, has quarantine hindered your preparation for the boxing match against Dan? Ian, I think you were on the last time we talked about this. Craig, why do people want to see me and Dan fight so much?
I think it's because the both of you are very annoying, and people just want to see you two knocking 7 bells out of each other, basically.
I've suggested an ESPN FC quiz between the two of us with you as the host, Craig. How do you feel about that?
I'm busy that day, whenever it is.
That would be tame by comparison. I think I'd rather see the fight, really. I mean, I'd rather see this. I'd rather see Dan and Sebi, I think, fighting than this idea of Mike Tyson, you know, in getting on for 60 and Evander Holyfield getting it on again. But I don't know. They'd have to wear very big gloves, soft gloves, so they didn't hurt each other.
That's right. You know, this beautiful face is after all my moneymaker, so we got to keep it at least somewhat intact. We'll leave it there for today. A reminder, you can watch ESPN FC 7 days a week. We are back at it 365, 24/7. Don't miss a single show. We will be back tomorrow.
Well, thank you very much for watching ESPN on YouTube. For more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for live streaming, premium content, and let's not forget as well, ESPN FC 7 days a week, subscribe to ESPN Plus.